So my water pump had broken, and eventually my pulley snapped, and it led to everything failing on the car, and I had to get it towed back. The guy from the tow truck drove it in and left it here, so I'm just hoping with him driving at that little distance nothing bad has happened to the car. At least it's given me enough room to work on. So this belt here is the aircon belt. It probably needs to be replaced, but the aircon's not running as it is, and I'm going to do that later on. I've got a new drive belt I'm putting on because I have to replace the tensioner, which actually goes, I'll try and get down here into this bolt here, and there's another bolt down further there. So the tensioner goes onto there, those two bolts. They're 13mm bolts. To put that in, there's an idler pulley, which is here. Let's see if I can put the light on. Yep, so the idler pulley goes into, where's my finger, into that one there, right next to the alternator. And that's a 16mm bolt. It's good to take that out before you take out the tensioner. It just it's overlapping it just a tiny bit. And I've put in my new water pump and the new pulley in here. The new water pump's back there. So I've got the thing still on the thread because I'm getting a new fan because it was all rusted together. And I basically had to, I couldn't take the fan out, so I had to undo the 3 bolts, which are an Allen key bolt, size 5 Allen key bolt. These are all 10 mils, and it's 10 mils on the water pump. So I had to slide this out, and I only had this much room, and then I had to get a 10 mil wrench behind that and take out the 4 bolts for the water pulley. And then there's 2 other holes for a 10mm bolt. I had to use extra long bolts, and they help push the pulley out, the water pump out, sorry. So I'm getting a new fan, and I'll do another video to show you putting the new tensioner on, and then I'll put that idler pulley on. And I'm getting the new tensioner because the tensioner was rounded. I'll show you in a sec. And putting the new fan on, and yeah, then I just put the shroud in with the fan, and well, I'll put the belt on first after I do the tensioner, and then yeah, Bob's your uncle. So I'll just quickly show you how bad my parts were, and it's just a good idea to make sure that your parts are replaced on time. This thing is in pretty bad shape, but I'm surprised that it actually lasted. BMWs are actually really strong. That cap there is just the dust cap for the idler pulley. They just pop off with a small flathead screwdriver. So it's all relatively easy. It's a little bit fiddly, but I mean, I'll get an overview. Once you actually pull the fan out, this is my hand, you've actually got like a fair bit of room. This is just loose. You just pop it out with a clip. So all I have to do is pull that clip out, and then I can actually clip it. It attaches onto this bit here. But I've just got it rested on there. And I also took off this bottom one as well for a little bit of extra room. Same thing, and then they just pop straight back on. So this is what I had to pull out. This is actually rusted on to the water pump, and that's the clutch fan there. The pulley was actually alright. I just smacked it with a rubber mallet so I could actually get my hand behind there, because as you can see, there's like no room whatsoever to work with, especially under the space that I just showed you. So this was a 10mm wrench that I had to actually use under that little space to like try and work it in like increments about literally that range of motion to try and undo it. Eventually it worked, and then I got some extra long bolts, and you put them into these holes here, and you have to push them all the way, and eventually it starts to pull it out. A bit of WD-40 made it loosen up so I could actually wriggle it out, and then yeah, it does actually come out, but I had to pull it out as one unit. So as you can see, it's really corroded. There's like no O-ring on it at all, and it's shocking. Like just the way it moves. It's like wobbly. I'm trying to show you. It's pretty wobbly. So yeah, it was shocking. And another reason why I couldn't undo this bolt for the fan was because not only was it rusted, there was just so much, all the bearings I've got in this, so even if I was holding it with the tool, it was just spinning backwards anyway, like this, and it wasn't giving me any way of actually undoing the nut whatsoever. But I mean, it actually wiggled quite a lot when it was in there. So, but it's a learning process, and as I said, it can be done. This is a T50 Torx. That's what you use to loosen your AC belt. It's relatively easy. These battery powered ratchets are very, very handy. You need the extension to do the bottom tensioner bolt, and then you can take that extension off and just use it with one extension for the top one. It's just that there's not enough room just for this one extension to do the bottom bolt. So when you put it back on, use the double extension first, put the nut in, do it up with your hand, and the other nut with your top hand, the top nut with your other hand, so do it finger tight, and use the double extension for the bottom to tighten it up, and then take that off, and then use the other 13mm to do up the top nut, and then the 16mm to adjust it and put on the idler pulley. So this is the idler pulley, a 16 nut bolt. It's offset. It's just a very, very long bolt. This is the rounded nut and the tensioner pulley. The pulley is actually all right. The tensioner itself is a little bit rusted, so I was a bit hesitant with moving, but it's rounded. So whatever nut I was using, was actually slipping. The reason why I'm doing the fan is because this came apart and I can't undo the other clutch part, so I'm getting a whole clutch and fan as one system. And yeah, I was actually using this with a 16mm, so it's good to have the right tools. I'll show you just quickly. I was trying to use a makeshift version and putting this inside the socket. Might not have been this one, but there was another one that I've got on a breaker bar. So it was on the end of my breaker bar here. I was actually sitting that inside there with a bit of paper underneath to keep it towards the surface, and trying to break it with that, which isn't a good idea. So just buy yourself a 16mm socket. It's like $10. I can't drive anywhere because I don't have the car running, so I was just trying to make shift and make do with what I had. But eventually I ended up getting down to Bunnings and or the hardware store and getting one. The cable ties are just to put the shroud on. These are the bolts for the tensioner. They're just 13mm. Okay. And that's the cover. You just have two things there, and you've got another two on the edge holding it. These, you've got 3 holes, as you can see here, and that sits just with the fan. And I'm just doing them up with cable ties, just like zip tying them tight together. So I'll do another video and I'll show you it as I'm putting it back in. Parts should be in tomorrow, and then coolant the next day. So then I'll flush it, and then we get to see if the car's running again. These are the bolts that I use, little 10mm bolts, or long 10mm bolts that I use to push and extract the water pump out. So there, I mean, they were only $3. These are the bolts, the Allen key bolts, the 5mm size 5 Allen keys, sorry, for your fan, which attach it to the clutch. And it's handy to have like little tools like these in case things drop. But yeah, there we go. It's a quick overview of BMW M54. I think M52s are the same engine, and where things are, and the size of nuts that you need, and also a little, I don't know, overview of what's going on with my car at the moment. So yeah, hopefully we get it all back and running very soon. And it's also a way to show you that maintenance, just to keep on track of these things, is a very good thing to do. You look at this is like terrible, but I had no idea what it was. All I knew that water was leaking. I thought it was from my radiator. So I was actually going to replace the radiator, and I had no idea at all. And then all of a sudden my belt went, because this was obviously putting too much strain on the belt. And so eventually the belt went, and then I knew that it was the water pump, because I knew what to look for. If you wiggle the fan, then it's attached to the water pump, and then you sort of like know. So now that I actually know my way around the car a little bit more, I can tell. So yeah, I was gonna spend $200 on a radiator, replace the radiator, and it would have been worth nothing. It just would have had a new radiator. So yeah, so in a way I'm kind of glad, but I mean, everything went. So because that belt, when that belt goes, it does the alternator, it does the steering pump, and the crankcase, the idler pulley and stuff, and the tensioner, and it goes around the water pump. The idling was all right on the car. The steering went, and I could hear the belt go. So once I heard the belt go, I was like, whoa, something big's happened. And I checked it, and I saw water actually pouring out from where this was. And I just knew that this is where the water pump was, like at the top, because I saw water was coming from there. And yeah, so it was time to replace the water pump. And as you can see, it really needs to be replaced. I have no idea how long that's been in the car. So they're the 4 bolts that you need to, they're 10mm as well, that attach the pulley, the water pump pulley on. Yeah, they're just 10mm. As you can see, I had like barely any space to like get my hand into to actually do it. But ideally, what you do is you take this clutch fan, this fan clutch off first, and then you do that by using those bolts. And I'll show you the tool, because I actually did buy the tool to do it, which is all right because I can do it next time with the right tools. So I just got a whole lot of stuff here. I'm trying to keep space. That's the busted belt, the shredded belt. So what you do is you use this end and these bolts, or these holes here, to actually hold the water pulley bolts still, and then you use this wrench and you crack it that way. So you pull this way and use that to crack it that way, and you loosen it so it's an opposite running thread. And then when you put it on, you just have to cycle it. You just put it on, just get it on a couple of threads, spin the fan, and then just spin it. It'll do it tight, and then just pull up the tension just a tiny bit with this. It doesn't have to be too much because you don't want it to be stuck like mine was, because then you're in all sorts of shit, as you can see with my experience. So I'll do another video tomorrow, and I'll when the parts come, and I'll show you exactly what I'm doing to fix it. So yeah, there it is.